Good morning, Michigan. One of the most passionate men in the world is Tony Daunt, the executive director of the Michigan Freedom Fund, and he's on our AT&T line right this very moment, having kept a watchful eye on the Capitol into the wee small hours of the morning last night, when apparently some expanded unemployment benefits and COVID-19 liability protections for businesses passed out of the House and the Senate as part of a deal with Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Welcome to the program, sir.
Good morning. I appreciate the hype. I should have you write my dating profile with that type of introduction. So thank you.
Well, would that be fiction or nonfiction? That's the question, I guess. Or maybe it doesn't really matter, because these days, Tony Daunt, I don't know the difference between fiction and nonfiction. And I digress here for just a moment. Because of the way everything is being politicized, and I mean everything from mask wearing to a plot to kidnap the governor to COVID-19 numbers, I don't know whether to believe public officials. I don't know whether to believe the media. I don't know whether to believe the doctors. What am I to do?
That's a great question. And I've found, as I've seen the same things you've just laid out, that I'm trusting, for the most part, my gut and my intuition. And, thankfully, I was raised well to just kind of be kind to everybody, regardless of their politics, and to be skeptical of what you see and hear and read in the media and from others, and apply a modicum of common sense to all of it and digest it and say, all right, well, here's what I'm going to do. And I guess that's what I'd recommend, because you are so spot on that everything is so political that, it doesn't matter what the issue is. It's a life and death battle, and nothing gets accomplished. And like you said, with the plot to kidnap the governor, for instance, both sides, unfortunately, making reckless statements. I've got the House candidate from the Republican side making ridiculous statements, and then the governor, basically alluding to the fact that it's the fault of the rhetoric of Lee Chatfield and Mike Shirky. None of it does any good. It doesn't help to calm the temperature, cool the temperature, and I really wish it would stop, and maybe we'll see somewhat of a cooling down on November 4th, but I don't hold out much hope for that.
And of course, the governor also blamed Donald Trump repeatedly and then got into a little Twitter war with him, which is exactly what you want to do if you want to get some attention.
That's exactly right. And, I've said repeatedly on this program and elsewhere that, unfortunately, the president has a habit of reckless rhetoric and pouring gasoline on fires. And I think everybody knows that by now. And certainly Governor Whitmer knows that by now. But like you said, if you're looking for attention, draw him into the fight, because you're going to get it. And unfortunately, again, it does nothing to highlight the great work of law enforcement in stopping the plot, and it does nothing to calm down the attitude, calm the rhetoric. It just, every side's looking to ratchet up, and unfortunately, despite the condemnations of that plot by the Speaker and the Senate Majority Leader, the governor decided to basically insinuate they're partly responsible too, and it's so damaging to the ability to get things done in Lansing, and I really wish that she would stop.
And while the U.S. Supreme Court's getting so much attention this week during the confirmation hearings, if you want to call them that, Michigan Supreme Court ruled that the governor's unilateral orders and mandates were unconstitutional. The Senate Majority Leader has written an open letter to her, Mike Shirky, saying instead of reaching out to work together, you, speaking to her, attempted an end run around the court and used the Department of Health and Human Services to just put out some new orders that were essentially the same as the ones that the court ruled unconstitutional.
Yeah, I really struggle to understand how the leader of the executive branch in this state can be told by the Supreme Court repeatedly now that her actions are illegal and unconstitutional based on our laws and the Constitution of the state, and yet direct a subordinate to go about doing exactly what she's been repudiated for. And that's just another situation where it does nothing to come together to help kind of cool things down, take a measured approach to what needs to be done to continue fighting the pandemic and the virus, and in figuring out ways to protect the vulnerable, but also get back to a sense of normalcy. And, the legislature has been willing to work with her from day one. And unfortunately, that hasn't been reciprocated. And it appears as though it's not going to be either for the most part moving forward. And I urge her to cool the rhetoric, to come to the table, to work with people, because as you said earlier about the politicization of everything, it makes people less likely to believe what they're hearing from their leaders. And, for masks, for instance, people are going to react more positively to being, asked to do something, being recommended to do something, not told they have to do something. That's just human nature. And I wish people would realize that and come together and come up with solutions that make suggestions as opposed to requirements or mandates.
Well, now comes Dr. Jonae Caldoun, who is the Anthony Fauci, I guess, of Michigan, and she says yesterday that it looks like we're having, in these two audio clips, the beginning of a second wave, and we're, 3 weeks before the election. Here's what she said.
In many places across the state, the cases are actually the highest that they've been throughout the entire pandemic. And over the next several weeks, it is possible that we will see deaths increasing as people fight for their lives in the hospital.
It's possible.
That type of rhetoric is just so absurd and so dangerous and does nothing to help put people in a place where they're taking precaution, but also confident that they can live their lives if they take those precautions. And very early on, this entire situation, the lockdowns of the spring was to flatten the curve, and everybody was on board. We did that. The curve has been flattened, and of course, during a pandemic, of course, with any viral outbreak, you're going to have spikes in cases here and there. But we cannot live our lives in constant fear of this and ready to pull the trigger to lock things down again. That is too damaging to the mental health of people. It's too damaging to the physical health of people. And it's too damaging to the economic health of people and our state, which feed into the previous two. And it's panic, it's hysteria, and again, they need to stop with that type of language.
Well, beware, it may be coming again. Tony Daunt, Michigan Freedom Fund. Michael Patrick Shiels, all across Michigan.